Okay, so let's get started. I hope everybody can see my screen. Great. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to another Magento Meetup Nagpur. Today, it's the first time we are doing it virtually because of this COVID situation, but hopefully everything goes according to plan and nothing like internet disruption happens. Hopefully, let's see. So, today, our focus would be on two very major topics on Magento. One would be performance, and one would be AI recommendation by Adobe Sensei. So before that, I would like to thank our sponsors, which is JetBrains. So we'll have a license giveaway today at the end of this meetup. So please stay tuned. So, special thanks to two people. One is Aryan Singh, who is our graphics designers and helped us with all the beautiful banners that you saw across the social media. And another special thanks to Milind, who is also an organizer of Magento Meetup Lucknow, who was helping me behind the scenes to organize all of this. So, special thanks to both of them. Without them, this would not have been possible. So today we have two speakers. So let me introduce the first one. So we have Yvonne with us, who is, I don't think he needs a special introduction, but I'll still try to introduce him. So I think most of you in the Magento community already know him, but just a brief intro about him. So he was one of the core developers of Magento 1. So he was with the Magento community when like Magento was still in Varian, or the project was still known as Varian. And he has been working with Magento ever since. He currently works as an independent consultant as a Magento performance firefighter. So basically, he looks and consults about Magento performance, test-driven development, and a lot of other things. So he is also a Magento trainer. So please follow him on Twitter. He posts almost very regularly about Magento performance tips and tricks. He is also very active on Twitch and streams very fascinating projects that he has been working on. Same on YouTube and of course LinkedIn. I don't think he is that active on LinkedIn, but still follow him there. So Yvonne, I'll now stop talking and then hand over the virtual stage to you now.
Thank you very much for introduction, Atish. Yeah, let me share my screen.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing.
Okay. Okay, so I need to do probably this one. I hope everyone sees my screen and everything is fine.
Yes, I can.
Atish, can you confirm?
Yes, I can see you.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks everyone for joining today's meetup. It was quite interesting when Atish invited me to speak at the meetup. I usually speak at the conferences, not much at the meetups. So for me, it's my first meetup experience. But it's also kind of interesting meetup experience because it's all online and virtual. So I'm doing it from my home. So kind of nice thing to try out. In general, today we're going to speak a little bit about the Magento backend performance issues, and we're going to speak on different areas of the backend performance during the project. Like we're going to touch a little bit on the design phase and during the development phase of the project. And in case if you have some questions, don't hesitate to write in chat because I'd like to receive a feedback. If you hear that something is not clear, better ask right away. Then I can dive more deeper into the topic and explain it more in detail. So let's start as a presentation. The topic is the common backend performance issues and the ways how to prevent them. Let's start first of all with a small, nice image. Oh, okay. I didn't switch the slide. Okay, so here is the image. As we know, like as longer as the project goes in a timeline, like the closer you're to going live, usually any issue is also getting more costly to fix at a later stage. So, for instance, if you make the right decision during the design phase before you even start writing any code, it's also good to know about possible performance pitfalls that exist in Magento. Then during the development phase, it's kind of still possible, like to fix something that you might have missed during the design phase, and also to make sure that you don't do some silly mistakes, like loading the product 2,000 of times on the category page. Those kind of issues I see a lot in the projects, unfortunately, but mostly it's because people are unaware what happens behind the scenes when they work with entity repositories and how probably to do it. And then in the live systems, these ones are actually the most costly mistakes, because if, let's say, you're going live and your MySQL server just goes down because you never tested the system under load, you never tested how the checkout will perform when you have, let's say, 200 concurrent visitors trying to place an order, then yeah, it's already too late to fix. You have to firefight, and you have to investigate what are the possible problems. So in this presentation, I will explain a little bit from every stage what you will do, except the live stage. The live stage is usually very spontaneous, but up to the live system setup, I'm going to explain you a little bit about the possible performance issues you have to avoid. So let's start with the design phase. So first of all, I want to make sure that every one of you knows that you're not just developers, you're actually architects. It doesn't matter, like, do you have an architect title or not, you are responsible for the final product and for the final architecture of the systems that you are building. Like, it doesn't matter, like, are you just changing a couple of lines of the code, or you're like designing and building diagrams and so on. Like, it doesn't make much difference. Everyone who writes a code that gets deployed to production is actually an architect, because you are affecting the system. And now let's start with something that comes as a responsibility as an architect. Oh, that's weird. I need to do a different window. Sometimes it's not focused on the right window to switch to the next slide. So the wrong decisions that are done by changing the architecture of the system can lead to hundreds of hours of data fixes post-product launch. So let's take a look at some simple example. I call it an example with URL rewrites. I think a lot of you probably met this problem before, and it would be interesting for you to see how you could approach it differently, maybe if you didn't do it before, like I did. So let's say your customer wants to have some SEO-friendly URL slugs for alert navigation. So let's say instead of showing those color equals specific number, they want to have in the URL, they want to see, let's say, red or blue, or they want to see a size of a product that is selected as a alert navigation facet. So how would you usually implement it? Like, the most obvious solution that you would choose is always, as I see in many projects, people just create a URL rewrite for every single filter and category page combination. And in this case, there is a little bit of a problem, because when you create a URL rewrite for every filter and category page combination, first of all, you don't know how many combinations are there, because you have to really build some kind of very smart solution in order to index all of it. So usually people just create a specific filters in admin panel just to say, yeah, I'm going to generate those URL rights only, let's say, for brands or for color attribute. And you never check if there's actually any product behind this URL. So you just create any of them because it's inefficient to generate URLs in another way. So here is some interesting curve how actually everything changes. So as more categories you have, the more languages you have, and the more filters you have, the index size in Magento database is growing. So if, let's say, you have 500 categories, and let's say you have 10 languages, and let's say 10 store views, and let's say you have 20 filters, and you have 30 different options per each filter, in the end, your size of the URL rights is going to grow to 3 million records. And anything that grows above 1 million records in MySQL requires much more powerful server. And in MySQL, you need to keep majority of your table index in memory on a server. If you don't keep it in memory in a server, the read queries will be quite slow. And because of that, having this amount of records is not doing anything good for your project, because in the end, your read performance from the database is going to be slower unless you have a very powerful server. And paying more for a server just because you need to support these 3 million records makes no sense, because ideally you would do something better. So let's take a look at some of the examples. So let's take a look at this web shop URL. You see, like, there is something that is quite familiar. Like, we have this women's shoes, we have this red, green, and cozy. So in this case, let's say with this customer, we can assume that women's shoes is a category. And let's say those red, green, cozy, those are probably URL slags. So we can definitely create a functionality in Magento, and we can create something around parsing this URL before it actually hits the URL rewrite. And you can just find out all the parts over here that are matching the category path. And then you can take the red, green, cozy, and you can use them as URL slags, and you can work around the limitation of the URL rewrite by actually not creating any URL rewrite. You just splitting the URL, and you search only for category in URL rewrite table. And if you found a category, then you can definitely say, hey, it's category page. There is no definitive rewrite for the whole URL. And in this case, I probably can just split these parts of the URL and look up URL slags in my separate table. So what is a better solution? First of all, you can add a plugin for URL write processing. You can write an after plugin for that. And then if Magento didn't found any URLs, then you can trigger your own functionality that will split this URL and will find the most deepest level category from this URL path. And as soon as it finds the most deepest category from this URL path, the rest of the URL, it's just gonna treat as URL slags. And that's basically the solution that it is. And in the end, instead of, let's say, doing this amount of records to generate, you still have the same table structure. You still have the same read performance as without this functionality. There is some lookup happening only when Magento doesn't find a URL in a regular URL write. So you only introduce some additional queries when you actually need to look up something. So Here is also another interesting examples that I see a lot during the design phase. I call it an example with store views. So let's take a look at the merchant. So the merchant actually sells internationally. It has each country that has at least 2 languages. So they sell in local language, and they also want to have a possibility for English-speaking people just to switch to English language as well. Then they have mostly 10 target currencies. So let's say they sell in euros, they sell in dollars, they sell in rupees, and for international market they also maybe have a separate price in dollars, but it's different from the dollars, let's say, for United States. And that's basically it. So the most obvious solutions that you would do with standard Magento, what you will do, you will create a website for every single country out there, right? So you would go create a website in order to specify different prices per target market. And then you would create a store view within this website for each language you want to represent your data in. But there is some caveats with this obvious solution, because there's another nice chart here. And if you take a look here, like number of products, the curve doesn't go that much, but as soon as you go into store views and categories, then the numbers multiply quite a lot. So let's say your customer only sells 10,000 of products. And because of this store view solution, they have to create an 80 store views because they want to have, let's say, a presence in 10 markets. And each market has at least 3 different languages. Then you multiply it all together, and then you also multiply it by 500 categories. Yeah, 500 categories seems like a reasonable number of categories for a regular merchant. And then you have some crazy numbers, because your category index in this case, if you don't have a segmentation configured, in this case, category index will grow to 400 million of records. And 400 million of records is kind of heavy for MySQL to process, because MySQL need to keep the data in memory to return you data quite efficiently. It needs to operate in memory in order to join tables together, in order to return back the data back from MySQL. And if you have 400 million records, it doesn't help MySQL at all. And if I take a look at another index as well that exists in Magento, it's called price index. And this one gets tricky as well, because like if we just multiply number of SKUs by number of stores, it's not really that much, but also you will probably have some customer groups. And as soon as you have customer groups, it also grows quite fast. So let's say if this customer has 10 customer groups, then the number of records in price index goes to 8 million. And 8 million, it's also not a good number. And those numbers add up because there's not only one index that MySQL needs to keep in memory. There is multiple of them. Like you have to keep category index, price index, search index. You need to keep EAV index for layered navigation as well in memory. And that becomes a little bit problematic for Magento and for MySQL. So we can achieve the same functionality just by changing a little bit the way how we approach our project from the beginning. So if we would do it later in the project stage, it will be much more harder. But if you start a project and you see a customer that has a lot of websites, a lot of store views, if you just go with the standard approach just by creating store views and websites, then you need to think about, hey, maybe we can go in a little bit different direction. Maybe we can think about which product data is unique for this customer and which product data is repeating all the time. So what I, for instance, see for this customer as an example, we know that the product data changes based on the language. But I don't want, for instance, to have the same English data being duplicated. Like if I have a US English store view that is presented in every single website, I don't want to have this number of websites. I want just to have a single English store view, which I modify, and that's all. Otherwise, I would have to copy data into every single store view out there that is English when I want to modify an English name for a product. And in this case, you can map languages to the store views. So you create the same amount of store views as languages you have. And then your product data is not duplicated. So you have exactly one product name per language. But in this case, right, you cannot modify prices per language because your prices depend on a currency. So in this case, it means that unfortunately you cannot use a standard Magento pricing functionality, but it's not that big of a problem because you actually can create own price models in Magento and you can replace them. And usually merchants don't use the wall price functionality of Magento. Usually they have some simple data that comes from ERP or that comes from PIM system. And they don't manage prices themselves in Magento. They just want to supply this price data. And if they do something like that, you easily can create some new pricing functionality, create a new table, populate this table with the price data, and not use the AV structure for storing prices. So in this case, you can separate store view from a price scope. So you can move prices outside of the store view. And at the runtime, based on the visitor's country and based on the selected language, you can decide which price scope to use for this product and which store view to use for this product. So you don't need to directly rely on store views and websites. And it's possible quite well to adjust even configuration. So at the runtime, you even can create a plugin around configuration retrieval from Magento. And if you want to change, let's say, a store view header, or you want to change some configurations like available payment methods, you can create an override functionality that will change based on visitor countries. It will change store configuration as well. So you don't need to strictly follow the store view and website model of Magento. You can actually create something own, and you can let your merchant actually grow and allow him to create as many markets as he wants, because like you can just create only another language, but you don't need to create anything for another country unless you want to introduce a new currency or a new language, but those data is not multiplied like before, because in Magento, unfortunately, in a default installation, it's not built for such use cases, because you have to actually duplicate the data a lot. And I've seen a lot of merchants where you go into the admin panel and you have to actually switch to every single, let's say, Spanish language or every single Portuguese language in order to change the product name for those specific markets that speak that language. So let's summarize the better solution. You can create a store view for unique languages only. You can create country to currency and language map. So you don't need to strictly follow one-to-one relation of the store views to every single language in every single country. You just can create a mapping between a country and available languages or available currencies. You can write a simplified price storage specifically for this merchant based on the data that merchant actually provides you. And you can detect at runtime what is actual price scope and language to apply based on the domain URL path the actual visitor comes to them. In this case, there is a lot of interesting solutions that can grow from it. For instance, I had once a customer that had an idea, hey, I want to separate my whole catalog into separate domain names. So I want to have a domain name for selling laptops. I want to have a domain name for selling phones. I want to have a domain name for selling washers and so on. And that's very nice for them to have a solution like this, because you don't need to create a story for every single domain name. You can just create another entity that will be mapped to the story at the later stage. And I see there's already some questions, so let me quickly look at them. And so Kiran asks, like, do you have any sample module for price model for reference? Not an open source one, but there are some plans I have in my long roadmap to do something like that. Then Sankalp asks, this sounds good from cloud perspective to have single story per language, and if price is simple, but how it impacts the payment configurations that might come into play based on the country. So as I said, you can create as many entities as you want. So you can create, for instance, country configuration entity, and you can change specific values in the configuration at the runtime. And Magenta allows you through the DI, you can create a plugin around system.php configuration module of Magenta around get method. And in that get method, you can specify which passes for configuration you want to override, and you can just change those ones. So let's go into an interesting part of the presentation. So this is the development phase, and we were talking in previous one more about the planning and about design, so something that is important to decide early on. Now let's talk a little bit about when you actually start coding your project. So I have some set of rules around high efficient Magenta code. First rule that I have, it's actually minimize the amount of input-output operations to the bare minimum. So what do I mean about this point itself? So let's say you visit a page and you want to access, let's say, product price. Unfortunately, in standard Magento, there is a problem. If you have configurable products on a page, Magento will perform a database query for every single product. So this is suboptimal, and it actually breaks rule number one, because ideally you would like to preload all the required prices together with the product collection. You don't want to separately go on and fetch for every single configurable product the minimum available price right now. So here is some example from Magento 2.3. I think a lot of you run into this problem in the wild. It's called our favorite MSI module. So multi-stock inventory is one of the biggest contributors to the number of database queries executed on category pages as well as on product pages. So what does multi-stock inventory do? So let's say you have a list of products that needs to be rendered, and in order to render a product, you need to show is it in stock or out of stock. And what happens behind the scenes in multi-stock inventory module, let's say you render product 1, and then it goes on and checks if product 1 actually exists and sellable in inventory. So it performs a bunch of MySQL queries for this product. Then it goes to another product and it performs again a lot of database queries. And this is what I call load in a loop. This happens when, let's say, you iterate over a list of products, and for each of the product, you just do some operations that involves, let's say, talking to the database server, talking to the cache server, talking somewhere outside. So when you work with the data that is not yet available, so you loaded it. So that's why it's called load in a loop, because you're looping through products and then you load something inside of the loop. So what I did for one of the customers, instead of doing this database operations, I had to build something around it in order to optimize it. So what I did, I just hooked into after collection load events in Magento, and I just grabbed the collection itself of the loaded products. So as soon as the products are loaded, at that moment, I collect all the identifiers of products from the collection. And then I built a database query in order to retrieve for all of the products, not for one product, but for all of the product in collection. I write a query that retrieves the stock status and the stock quantity and a bunch of other data that I need in order to add this product later to the cart. So in such a way, instead of doing a database operation for every single product, I do it only once for the whole list of products. And this is the way how you can optimize your current code, or how you can prevent actually those issues from happening. You can think always in terms of, hey, I want to create, first of all, an API for multiple products to be loaded, not for a single one. Because if you think in terms of, let's say, loading product one by one, and you never created a service model that accepts a list of the products as an argument in order to load some additional data for it, you might run into load and lose, because you would basically just load this data separately all the time. And I see it a lot in Magento projects. Sometimes it's even more interesting than multi-stock inventory. I see a lot of projects where people just, by already having product model, they load this product model again from the entity repository, just because they need to retrieve some attribute that is not yet available in a product collection. However, there is a small trick that is available in every single Magento install out there. You can actually go into the attribute and admin panel, and you can change a flag used in product listing to true. And in this case, this attribute will magically appear in a product collection, because Magento product collections load all the attributes that are marked used in product listing. So you don't need to load product models separately. You just need to change the attribute property in order to have it loaded. And in this case, you don't need to access any repositories. Probably in some cases, if you strictly rely on product interface, then you would need to add some extension attributes in order to set this data from the actual product that was iterated through a collection. But usually it's not that big of a deal, because you can easily create this kind of customization. Then we have the rule number 2. Like we were talking about the reduction of input-output operations. But here we're talking about actually how heavy those I/O operations, because you can, let's say, retrieve a lot of data in a single query, but if this query is very slow, you're not achieving much as well, because in the end, you just build the query that is not optimal. And here I want to show some example. Just recently, I had one of the friends asking me for some help with my SQL query, because he wanted to receive some data from it. So let's dive deep in it. But first, we start with some select rules that I have. So if you want to retrieve some data from the database, first of all, you need to separate data retrieval from filtering. Because if you want to access, let's say, 10 products from a category, but at the same time, you're going to join a lot of other tables in order to add some data like EAV attributes and so on to this select, it's going to be very heavy for MySQL because MySQL will have to merge multiple large tables before MySQL will actually try to filter this result set and return you back the required products. So the best option in this case is actually, first of all, retrieve these 10 product IDs and then use these product IDs from your functionality in order to retrieve the rest of the data from other tables. So it's always better to separate into multiple IO operations because a single select is not very performant. And MySQL does not always can optimize the select to the best of its possibilities. Then I try to avoid joins unless I really need to filter something by the foreign table or I need to actually multiply a result set. So joins are very tricky because you're leaving yourself to MySQL Optimizer internal implementation when you try to join something because it's not always behaving in the same way. Even if you added all the required indexes on all the tables you're joining, sometimes there could be too much indexes and MySQL Optimizer cannot choose the right one. So I prefer usually to resort to joins only when I need to filter by this join. And that's basically it. Also, I see a lot of developers when they work with database, they always use fetch all, fetch pairs, and other kind of handy methods that are available in database adapter. But those methods, they're actually introducing additional operations because internally it just iterates over result set from PDO statement and creates for you a final array. But then people still go through the same array and iterate over it in order to create objects or to create some data structures that they will query later. So I prefer, if I need to retrieve a list of, let's say, products or product IDs, I prefer to iterate through the actual iterators that is returned from the database adapter, then actually go on and to try to iterate again through the array. So if you have a possibility to iterate over iterator, better do it through the iterator because it's more memory efficient and it also saves you some CPU cycles because the data is not getting copied into array and then you iterate for the same array in the end. So we have some almost final example. So it's not the final example, it's almost final. So a friend of mine recently asked me to help him to query a list of open GitHub issues per day for the last year for multiple projects he's monitoring. So he wanted to build a graph of open issues per day. And this is kind of heavy database query. So he sent me this database query. And this database query took a couple of hours for him to complete. So let's talk a little bit about the query itself. So he joins here two different actually he joins here issues table twice by itself in order to find the previous created at record, and in the end it was happening like this table had something like 1 million of records, and in the end he was joining it with another million records, and every single record has another record itself, so it was creating something like 10 billion of records in a final result set. And MySQL was just not good with processing this query efficiently. So it looks kind of like simple query, but behind the scenes, it was performing a lot of redundant functionalities. So what I did, I just created for him a small database script. So instead of doing it in one single query, I decided, yeah, I want to combine PHP together with MySQL. So let's start with a simple one. So first of all, I initialize an empty array of open issues per repository. Then I also initialize a mutation array, and I also initialized the date period by which I want to access list of the issues open per each repository. Then I specify the interval, so it's going to be for each day for the last year. And then I export also start date into string in order to add it to the filters. Then I have a simple query that performs quite well. It just filters out the count of open issues exactly 1 year ago on that day. And then I just execute this query and I create the number of open issues 1 year ago for each of the repositories. So I just specify it in an array. Then I have these mutation queries itself. So first query, it's a query that will tell me how many issues has been closed on each specific day during the last year, grouped by the date. Another query tells how many issues has been opened on particular day. So instead of creating this smart aggregation query, I just have separate queries that doing different mutations by themselves. Then I'm just iterating through each of the queries, and I just aggregate this data internally in PHP in an associative array. So instead of doing it all on the database level, I aggregate the data in PHP. I do for each through statements. So right now here I'm using just standard PDO. It's not a Magento database adapter, but Anshu was asking about an example of using an iterator. An iterator is very simple. When you run Magento on Magento database adapter, when you execute a method called query, this query method already returns you an iterable statement. So you just can go and run it for each out of it. So you don't need to execute any additional methods. That's something that's quite nice about database adapters that Magento uses, that it by default already returns you an iterable result set. So in this case, I just create a list of mutations. And then at a later stage, after I know the amount of open issues on every single, after I know the number of open issues 1 year ago, and I know per each day how many issues has been closed or opened, I can just create an iterator that will just iterate through every single day for the last year, and will take the mutations if there's any, and will modify the value that was initially, and will record every single day number of issues that has been opened during that day. So instead of running a single database query, I just combine those two things together. And the final result was actually quite nice. So yeah, we can just walk through it. So I just specify now, like, yeah, it's the time right now because I need to create a final condition. And then I iterate through issues per repository, so it's the initial value. Then I do iterate for the date period, and I check that if now is more than the actual date that I'm walking through, while it's still larger than the ones that I check against, I'm going to continue the loop. And inside of the loop, I take the current date ID. Then I try to access the mutations. And then I set the day's result for the specific repository and for the specific day. You see here, for instance, the total count gets plus equals mutations. So mutations on the previous slide, you would see that I accumulate together plus and minus signs, so they cancel out. So I just need to add it here. If there was more close issues than open issues during the day, it will just reduce the number of total count. Then I record the current total count in the resulting array, and I add another day to the date iterable. So the total time to generate this report is now only 100 milliseconds instead of a couple of hours, just because instead of trying to fix this problem by using a single database query, I decided to use both of the solutions. So the balance is very important. Not everything you can solve by writing the database query, and not everything you can solve by using PHP code. You need to use both of them. You need to combine together using different database queries. You better execute multiple simpler database queries than execute a big one that will already return you everything. You can offload some of the processing into the PHP itself. So the rule number 3, do not call any third-party APIs or send emails within an open database transaction. So this is one of the biggest issues that happen during large sale periods. And one of my customers that came to me like, hey, we cannot process, let's say, more than one order per second. Like, we are planning this amount. And I did an investigation of their setup, and it appears to be that they were doing some API call to some third-party system during the order place transaction before the transaction was committed. And because of that, all the other connections were waiting for one transaction to complete. So they were waiting on third-party system before the next order was starting to be added to the database. And this is a very common issue that happens. A lot of payment providers doing this kind of silly mistake when they just charge a credit card within a database transaction. Usually you need to make sure that you have an order placed, and then when you have an order placed, you need to charge the credit card of the customer. If you put a credit card charge within a transaction, you run into a risk that, hey, our database may go away. I already charged a credit card, but I cannot save an order because, let's say, as the transaction is still not complete, and I lost the database connection, so everything is lost and you cannot do anything about it. So always make sure that you first save an order, the transaction is committed, and only then you do any API calls or you send an email only after you close the database transaction. You don't need to close the database connection, just to execute a commit operation. And here's the rule number 4, and it's going to have some final example for today's presentation. First of all, you need to avoid updates to shared entities from concurrent connections. And I think you will understand this issue better when I actually show you the real example from Magento Core, where it actually is a problem. So during the Black Friday, one of my customers started to receive a lot of log wait timeouts in New Relic reports. And after investigation, it was found out like the issue was in site-wide free shipping sales rule. So they specify like above specific amount, we're going to offer free shipping. But the problem was that every single order was satisfying this condition. So every single order was modifying a sales rule on order place. So I call this problem sales rule lock of doom, because when you place an order, Magento does very interesting thing. It actually updates your sales rule counters. So it wants to tell, yay, this sales rule has been used this amount of time. So it will do it in the same transaction. And in MySQL, if you update the same record of the same table in concurrent database transactions, the other transactions have to wait until the previous one actually committed the complete transaction. So it doesn't happen on per statement basis. It happens for the whole order place operation because it happens within this single transaction. So MySQL just logs the sales rule record, and you cannot process more than one order per time. So it doesn't matter like how many server resources you have. It just was a silly mistake in Magento Core that was not allowing this customer to go more than one concurrent order at a time. So what was the solution? The solution was quite simple because instead of actually updating a sales rule table, I just modified the behavior and I created a service model that stores the counts for specific sales rule usage in a separate table. So I created another table. I called it sales rule mutations. And in this sales rule mutations, all the counters has been added as a separate row. So for every single sales rule, I'm gonna for every single sales rule, I'm just gonna create a record in a table for every single mutations of the counts. Then either it's increment or decrement, and then I'm gonna update counters on actual sales rules only by cron job or by queue. So instead of doing it on every single order place, I'm doing it, let's say, once a minute. It doesn't affect much functionality of the sales rules because I still process them, but it just happens not in concurrent environment, and it happens under my control. So I never execute more than let's say a number of times that is required. Theo asks right now, like, does this issue happens in 2.4? I didn't test this in 2.4, but I did report it right away to Magento Core when I ran into the issue. I even supplied for them a module that I've used for this customer as an example how to get rid of the problem, but I don't know if they implemented it or not. I didn't have time to check it yet. So that's basically all for today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I'm happy to answer them. And thank you very much for listening to my presentation.
Thanks, Ivan. It was a very great presentation, and I learned a lot of insights on the Magento performance. It was really great. And thank you for taking your time. Your busy scheduled man, I know, but thank you for taking the time and coming to our meetup and giving us so much knowledge on this part. I know a lot of people do struggle with these kind of things. I actually think sometimes people say that Magento is like 1% development and 99% optimization sometimes, but that's the way how it is sometimes. So it was really, really good that you shared such a good amount of knowledge for us. And just to give everybody a little bit of more idea about Ivan, he also co-hosts a show called Load in the Loop, which is actually done by Ivan and Eric. Eric is another person who is a co-founder and CEO of, I think, Mage Mojo, if I am not wrong. And there they actually do live site profiling using a tool called Blackfire, in which they discuss all these sorts of issues related to inventory, load in the loop kind of a problems, very simple tricks and tips how you can improve it and things like that. So anybody who has any other kind of issues and want to see what kind of exploring these two people do, please do subscribe to this channel. And I think they post every other week or something like that. I'm not sure on their posting cycle. Yvonne?
Yeah, so we do bi-weekly show. We try to do bi-weekly show, but it depends. Sometimes, for instance, I had my microphone being broken, so we didn't do it last week, but we're gonna record tomorrow.
Oh, okay, that's great. And thank you so much again for joining us for this meetup all the way from the Netherlands. So thank you so much. And anybody has any other questions that are lying around? Let me just check. I think we don't have any much questions. Okay, great.
I think Anshu was asking, can we avoid most of the problems using the CQRS and splitting the DB for read and write? So, Anshu, the problem is not with splitting the read and write. The problem is when you write, you already lock this table, and the other people also need to acquire the same write lock. So you still run into the same problem, like you have the same record that you have to update. So it kind of doesn't help much. So it can help with read performance because then your replicas won't get blocked on reading. But as soon as you need to do concurrent writes, it's always going to be a problem. And it's always good to have some kind of separation, like doing updates of the shared record through a cron job by creating some kind of mutation tables. Or, for instance, if you are more interested in also accurate data, for instance, you want to right away prohibit the customer, let's say, to use more than specific number of times a sales rule. In this case, you would write some small microservice that will do multiple operations at the same time by using some event loop and will subtract those quantities right away in memory in single thread. So it's going to be much more faster and better. So thank you very much. And yeah, have a nice weekend, everyone.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for taking the time again.
Unfortunately, I have to go right now. So thank you very much. Have a nice meetup.
Okay. Thanks, Ivan. Thank you so much for coming. Okay. Great presentation by Ivan. Now we'll just take a little 5-10 minute break and then come back to our next presenter. So I think a 5 minutes break should be good. Okay, I think we can start again. So going back to my presentation. So next up we have Deepika. So Deepika is from Nagpur, where the meetup is from again. So she has around 9 years of experience in all for the development experience she has, and out of which the 7 of which has been around Magento only. So she has worked with Magento 1 and also done the consecutive jump to Magento 2 as well. She's a keen learner, and today she will be sharing her experience with Magento AI recommendation module that was recently developed together with Adobe Sensei and the Magento development team. So, Deepika, I'll stop sharing my screen now and hand over the virtual stage to you.
Sure. So, hi guys, welcome to this meetup. I hope I'm audible to you all.
Yes, we can hear you. If you're
Okay.
sharing a screen that is not visible.
No, I haven't started yet.
Okay.
So, thank you all for joining us on this lazy Saturday. So, today we will be speaking about product recommendations powered by Adobe Sensei. Let's start with an example for which I will need your inputs. You can send your updates in the chat message. So whenever we are trying to buy something, let's say if we are trying to buy a mobile phone, so what will you do? Like you can read the whole description that is there in the site from where you're trying to buy it, or hear from it from your friends, like if they are using that mobile. So basically, you try to see find out recommendations that are there for that product to see if that product suits you best or not. Am I right? Okay, so yes, we got a yes here. So basically, recommendations are very important in today's date because whenever we are trying to buy anything, we try to seek out recommendations from everyone. But the problem with a fixed recommendation, like if right now we do have related products with Magento, we have cross sells, we have upsells. But the problem is that if I'm giving a cross sell product for one of the products that I have, then it's not necessary that the recommendation will work for everyone. Like if in case of mobiles, if someone likes to play PUBG, so obviously they will need a mobile phone that has higher RAM compared to a simple person who doesn't likes to use mobile much. So with each person the recommendations change, and if a same thing has a different sets of products, like the mobile phone, let's consider OnePlus. It has 6 GB, it has 8 GB. So I'm not going to show all the recommendations of that product against the related products because it's almost the same. So the recommendations that work for everyone is different based on the customers, and that's where AI comes in picture. Like in this Magento recommendations that has recently been developed, we try to make use of artificial intelligence, and we Magento basically collects data on the customer's preferences, like what products he has purchased in the past, and like what if he has seen this product, which product is he seeing next. So it collects basically all kind of similar data, and then tries to um, show the recommendations to the customers. So let's start with the presentation. The today's agenda is like what we will be studying is what and why are of recommendations, Adobe Sensei, what's so special about it, benefits of recommendations, how do recommendations work, what is needed for recommendations to work and to install them. Then we will also be like the adding recommendations to front end. This will be a demo part that we will be doing, types of recommendations that are available, and like how do recommendations works with cache, and limitations of recommendation, update and uninstall of recommendations. So like mostly we have already covered like what is recommendations. So basically recommendations are nothing but they are a set of products that we show to the customers that are relevant and engaging to his current product. And like the biggest giant that uses recommendations is Netflix. Like there are so many shows on Netflix that which people see out because it was recommended to them by the current show that they were seeing. So Netflix is one of the topmost giant who is using recommendations. And besides that, there is Amazon, which has seen 35% of revenue increase since the last year, only because of the recommendations that they are using on the site. So bottom line is that recommendations are a proven tool that will boost your conversations. They will like get you site engagements and also impact the revenue. Do you have any questions till here? Um, okay. So do we have any questions still here? I guess no. So let's move on further. So Adobe Sensei, what's so special about it? So as I told you, like a single recommendation will not work for everyone. Each customer has to its specific requirements, and it tries to look around the products accordingly. So basically Adobe Sensei is an AI which will collect all the data. It collects the catalog data, the behavioral data of customer, like what they are visiting, and then if they're searching out particular terms, so which product they choose, which product they add to cart, and then remove it. So basically they collect all this data, and then that data is number crunched, and then processing is done, and AI is applied over it, and then the recommendation unit is sent to that customer accordingly. So when we like we do had related products, cross sells, upsells. So when Sensei is paired with recommendations, like the customer will get an experience that is specific to them, that is customized for them. So that's where AI plays the major role. So as we are already discussing on what are the benefits of recommendations over cross sells, upsells, and related products. So as I told you all that cross sells and upsells and related products are configured manually. So whenever a new enhancement is there in a product, we will have to go and manually change the recommendations, and that's a tedious job. Like we cannot with time, everyday recommendations products change. So we cannot go and every day make changes in the data only, and start showing up the new recommendations instead of old. And the other disadvantage will be, if you are changing the recommendations or related products or cross sells, upsells each and every day, you will have to clean the cache also, so the site will start performing slow. So that's what we have the benefits over recommendations on cross sells, upsells, and related products. I hope everyone is clear till now. So how recommendations work? So this is basically a diagram of how recommendations work in Magento. This is the Magento storefront where the recommendations are shown. Basically, RECS is recommendations and shortcuts. So it's mostly called Rex units. So basically, the first part that is there is Magento storefront backend and the actual logic of Adobe Sensei and SaaS. This is a separate service which we cannot see and access. It's hosted in Magento. So in the front end, basically, the role of front end is to show the recommendation units and to collect the events that are fired. Events means like the products that are added to cart, the products that are viewed when a customer is seeing a particular set of products. And then comes the backend part where the data service module, SaaS module, is installed. These are two dependent modules which we need for recommendations to work. And we will see how we can install them in the next slide. So basically, the backend is responsible for setting up the data services SaaS module and the Rex admin UI, where you can select which kind of recommendations you want to show and the layout of it. Everything is like it's plug and play. Initially, when the recommendation modules was launched in point 1 version, it was done manually. Like we had to go and manually create the templates and all, and manually choose the display of the recommendations. But now with the latest version, that is 2 point something, it is totally plug and play, and Magento is enhancing it every day. And like we do have a separate Slack channel where they take the suggestions on what you all want on recommendations, and accordingly to the customer needs or to our understanding, we do suggest them like what's working, what's not working, and based on that they keep on enhancing this module. So basically there are three sections for the recommendation to work, that is the front end, admin, and the SaaS services. So as you can see in this flow, this template is a two-way direction because it will take data from SaaS like SaaS services and it will show it. So it's a two-way task. And then the event collector send data from Magento to Adobe Sensei. The catalog sync module sends the catalog data from Magento backend to Adobe Sensei. What's the need of is we will see it in the next slide. Then there is the Rex admin UI that works with the Rex services to show the options that are available for different pages. Like for the home page, the sets of modules are different. For catalog page, it's different. For PDP page, it's different. So basically, that is also a two-way coordination that is done between the SaaS services and the Rex admin UI. Do we have any questions still here? Okay, so I see a question that is sent by Tom. How do we set up Sensei? Is it a paid service? Any demo available? So, like basically, we cannot set up Sensei. That is under control of Magento. We basically need to integrate it in our site, and then we will start sending data from Magento to Sensei. The Sensei part is not in our control, and we don't have the access to it, but we have the access on what data we can send from Magento to Sensei. Is it a paid service? Yes, this is a paid service, but basically it's not paid for the enterprise customers. Like this service is available only to the enterprise customers. So if you are using an enterprise account, then you can integrate the Rex module, and that module is not separately charged. Only it's available for the enterprise version. And for the demo, I'm not sure if it's available right now because even we didn't had one demo, but we do have a demo that we will be showing up to you in this meetup. So you can use it for the front end part, not for the admin. I will check with Magento, and if we have a demo that is available, I will send it out to the details to you in LinkedIn. So another question that Dav has sent is it accessible by GraphQL and REST? No, right now this doesn't support headless. It is available only for Magento when we are using it with the whole integration. It's not available for the headless part right now, and that is one of the thing that is in the graph of Magento to work upon by this year end. So possibly by this year end or early next year, we will have it headless. Is it? Am I clear till now? Do you have any questions? Okay, then we will move further. So till now we have seen how do recommendations work. The next part obviously is what is all is needed for recommendations to work. So recommendations work with Magento Enterprise Edition and Enterprise for Cloud Editions 2.3.x versions. It's not available for versions that are lower than 2.3. It is not installed by default. We need to add it via the composer. And besides that, we need two other dependent modules, that is the data service module and the SaaS module. So data service module is responsible for sending out all the events that are going on the site to Magento Sensei. So basically it will track the shopper's behavior, like which products the customer is viewing, what products he's adding to cart, and what he's checkout, how the checkout flow goes for him. All such of data are collected by data services, and it doesn't collect any sensitive data, and it's totally compliant with GDPR. Then the SaaS export module. So basically the SaaS export module is responsible for sending the catalog data, the price, the URL, the images, and the availability of the product. So basically this all is required because based on that availability, it will remove the products that are not in place, and then the URLs are needed for showing the products. The prices are needed, obviously. Like if I'm showing a recommendation and it's far more costlier than the product that I'm seeing right now, so I won't like to choose that recommendation over the current product. So all these are important factors that are response like that the sensei needs to show, um, like to do the calculations that are they want for uh, showing the recommendation units. So, like installing and configuring Magento recommendations. As I told you, this recommendation module has gradually evolved and it was in development phase. So when we were in the first phase, it was basically the data service module, the SaaS export module. All these modules were installed explicitly. Like we had to install each and every module separately, and then we had to do the UI part of it to show the recommendations. But now we don't need to install all these modules separately. We just need to run composer require Magento product recommendations, and it's done. Like the recommendation module will take care of all the dependent modules that it needs for installing and for working properly. A lot of times, especially on local, when we are running this command, we do get a composer memory limit issue. So for that, you can add this composer memory limit equals to -1 for installing. Once you have installed, like we install every other module, we have to run the PHP Magento setup upgrade, and composer install is not needed because that is taken care by composer require only. So basically, the activities that are there, like setup upgrade, cache clearing, indexing, these are few things that we need to do. And one of the important things, like what happened with when I was trying to set up this demo unit for the presentation, the problem that I was facing was the recommendations were not showing up because on local we don't have continuous crons that are running and the indexers that are running. So basically, you need the crons and indexers to be running continuously for sending data to the sensei and getting data back from the sensei. And it has some specification like the product feed indexer should be set to update on schedule, so that uh, it can take the data every time it's updated. Not, it doesn't has to depend on product save because we are not going to save the product every day, but we do need the latest data on sensei every day. Like the, because many of the times the inventory is managed by third parties and all, in which a Magento save is not triggered. So that's why we need this on update on schedule so that it can get all the latest data. After we have installed the module, we need to specify the SaaS key and select the SaaS environment. We will be seeing a demo of this. And then when everything is linked successfully, it takes some time. Like sometime it takes, so sometimes it starts showing up immediately. Sometimes it takes 24 hours to do the calculations and show up the data in the front end. So that was all about the installation part. We are not going to install this module right away, but we will be seeing the configurations and how we can generate the SaaS key. Do you have any questions? So you can leave it on the chat, and simultaneously we can address them also.
There are questions that have been put out on the chat. So one of which that I can see is related to, I think, what happens when I first visit the site for the first time. What is the recommendation that come up? So this
Sure,
is
sure. Actually, I was just seeing the latest one. I mean, the earlier one that I had addressed. I just saw them, so I will go one by one on them. Okay, then as Atish was mentioning and as Ashish has said, suppose I'm visiting the website for the first time, then how AI will recommend product to me? Will it choose from the Magento default or random products will be shown? So like when this module is installed, until you configure it from the admin, it will not start showing up, but it will start collecting the data. So you will have to give it at least a day for collecting data. But if you need to show them modules immediately, then we do have backup recommendations that work. So we will be taking up in that in the further slides on which options we have backup available and which not. So basically, if it doesn't has one particular kind of recommendation, it takes up the backup data to show that recommendation. Also, right now, when we first install the site and we have a test environment. So recommendations don't work well with that, because on the test environment we don't keep on adding products regularly or doing the checkout regularly, or we don't have a huge set of collections for which we can experiment with data. So for those particular type of recommendations, Magento has provided some recommendation units that can be installed, and we can see if like for the test environments which recommendations we need to use. So that is basically a couple of things that we will be taking up next. So I think that should answer your question, and if not, we will discuss more on it. Then the next question that Atish Gore has sent is it accessible by REST? As per my knowledge right now, it's not accessible by REST, but I will just cross check it and I will update to you if it's accessible for REST, because right now it's not supporting any headless API and any headless environment. So I think it's not going to work with REST also, but I will just cross check that once. So Vivek Kumar has said that I'm guessing as it is collecting behavioral data, do we need to set up any additional tracking? No, right now that's not under our control. Magento is handling what kind of data it needs to collect. So basically, we have the control on which unit we need to show, but we don't have the control on what data Magento will collect. So we cannot set up any additional tracking right now, but maybe later we can, like, if you think that's important, we can give it as a suggestion to the Magento Slack channel, and they will possibly take it up if they feel it's important. So like if you do have any suggestions for the recommendation units also, you can surely send it out to me in my LinkedIn account, and I will connect with Magento team for seeing if we can get this done, because the Slack channels and all are not accessible to everyone right now. It's accessible to us because we were integrating the module since the start, and it's almost around 9 to 10 months in through which we are working on this environment. So we do have a control to a lot of things that you all might not get when you set up the recommendation modules. But if you have any suggestions, you can surely get back to me on my LinkedIn account, and I will work it out with Magento and get back to you on them. Is it possible to integrate it in the home page? Yes, it is possible. I will be showing a demo to you. Then Sankalp has shared what are the user attributes used for recommendation. Can we add different attributes? No, right now we don't have the control over the attributes that it is using. We just have the control over the number of products that we need to show, how and where we need to show them. Even like with each recommendation unit, it changes the page that you choose. Like if you're choosing the home page, the recommendations that will be available for the home page are different. The recommendations that are available for a PDP page and catalog page are different. So right now we don't have the control over the data that is getting collected or how the data is used, but we do have control over how we will be showing these recommendations on front end. Then Tushar has taken up a very important question. Does it works with Varnish setup? Yes, it does work, and how it works, we will be taking that up also. If no API, then how it will work for mobile apps? Right now, it will not work. Then I will take this up, Dave, with Magento team. Even I'm not sure if they have done the app integration, but it is responsive, so it does show up on mobile properly. But this question I will surely take up with Magento, and I will get back to you on your LinkedIn account. Means recommendation products will display only on PDP and cart pages. No, we do have control over it on the home page, the catalog page, the product detail page, and we can see a whole demo on which all sections and which all pages it's available. Anup has mentioned that I believe we can create custom API to fetch recommendations in some way. Yes, we can give it a try. Surely we can give it a try. But I'm not sure like how will we send the data from Magento or the API to, like, currently what's the case is, like, you are on a page where Magento is sending a request to the Sensei and collecting the data. But in case of API, we don't have that virtual environment there. Like it's only a calculation that is done or a call that is done based on a product, but the customer environment is not present there. So I'm not sure how well this will work. But yes, to show some data, we can surely show some data by the fallback or the fallback recommendations that are there. But I'm not sure how accurate that data will be. So this is something that we can try it out and we can figure it out how we can um, get and how we can enhance this. Gautam has asked, is it only for logged in customers? No, it's not only for logged in customers. It's available for guest customers also. What's the logic to show the recommendations to user? Which user data Sensei collects? So basically, it's not collecting your user data. It's not collecting your username. It's not collecting your user addresses. It's collecting the user's behavior. It's basically like when just imagine you're on Amazon. So you are browsing a product and then you can see some recommendation products that are showing up in the bottom, and then obviously you will go and click one of the recommendation products that was showing up. So all this behavior is something that is captured from Magento to Sensei, but it's not collecting the customer data, or possibly it may be collecting the customer location. But even I'm not sure on that, because location is something that is again GDPR compliant. So possibly it's not touching that also. It's basically collecting the behavior that is you are performing on the site, like which product you added to your cart, and then if like if you are seeing some any other product that is more relevant to you, and you try to remove that product and add that product. So this is something that's a behavior. So it's basically collecting the behavior data and the catalog data, and the calculations of the logic that is used to show the recommendation is something that is taken care by artificial intelligence by the Sensei module. So we don't have control over the logic of which recommendations will be sent to which customer. Anup has asked, is there any type of control available to modify Sensei behavior? No, right now it's not available. Even like since we are working since last a year on this module, I have never seen the Sensei panel. So right now we don't have any control over it. The other question is, what are the recommendation algorithms available in Sensei? So as I told you, it's basically based on AI. No one is working on doing the calculations or the algorithms there. It's AI that is taking care of it. And can I change the algorithms? No. And can use a different algorithms based on different sets of customer? AI is already taking care of it. It will basically um, show you recommendations based on the customer data that he has collected till now. So we don't have to go and change the algorithms, like the AI will take care of it. Then Tarun has asked, can we also define carousel sliders like the Magento default related product sliders? No, right now sliders is not available. Basically, it's a unit that will start showing up in the front end. Then we have a question by Dev. Why is it built on SaaS and AI cannot be implemented inside Magento as an open source? I'm not sure. Like basically, we do have an facility to show recommendations from outer sources also. So possibly the calculations that are done in AI is not based on alone your site. Possibly they are collecting the algorithms from everywhere and doing the calculations to show the recommendations on the front end. But this is something that I can surely discuss with the Magento team and get back to you. So I will basically start listing out the questions in the chat that were there, and the questions that I haven't answered mostly, like which are basically by Dev and some for the API. I will get back to you and I will share them as an article on the LinkedIn so everyone can benefit from it. Okay, then we have another question. Amazon and others are collecting data on their own server. As site owner, why should I share my customer data to third party? As I told you, we are not collecting the customer data. We are just collecting the behavior that is going on the site. So it's your server only which is sending the data to the AI, and AI is using only for showing the recommendations based on the algorithms that it has. It's not you misusing your data, or it's not exploiting your data. And anyways, we do have some third parties or the other that are set up on our site that is sending some data here and there. So this is something that is of Magento only, but basically, since the algorithms are mostly handled by the Adobe side, we have to send the data from Magento to Adobe, and it's not it's specific to your site. Like it will not send it to send out your data to anywhere else. You will have a specific account in um, the Sensei that will do the calculations, but for the calculation it may be using data that is available to it from other recommendations or from other sites also. But what's the actual logic behind it, like even I'm not aware about that. Then the other question is, but the recommendations will be of Magento store only, so it can build inbuild. Yes, it can. We can go for an inbuild environment, but it will add to your server load also, because basically you will have to add the tool that they are using for the AI calculations onto your server, and then do the calculations, and like it will obviously add to the server load. So we will have to see why Magento choose this option. So this is surely a question that we can take up with Magento, and I can share the details of the same once I have the answers from Magento to you in an LinkedIn article that will be helpful for everyone. Can you please share the text Slack channel? For the text Slack channel, I'm not sure if I can share it to you, because recently I had asked Magento team that I can share it out to you or not, to everyone in the meetup. So they said that right now the support team is handling all those things. So um, basically we can go and raise a support ticket, but if you need to specifically need that channel for discussing it, the technical aspects of it, then I will share those details after confirmation from Magento to you. Is there any alternative open source available similar to Sensei? No, I haven't tried that object, because this is something that has came up recently, so I'm not sure if any open source is available or not for this. Okay, then Ankit Deshmukh has asked, like, will the data collection cause issues in performance, specifically in case of heavy traffic? I'm guessing it's firing calls to Sensei through Magento module. Yes, like it's firing the calls from the Magento module, but till now, like we are using it from a long time on a production environment, and I haven't seen any issues regarding performance, because it's very quick enough. Like the catalog data that is there, it's taken up from the admin section, and I guess once or twice a day, so that is not adding the load. And the behavioral data, I think that even that should not add load to your environment. But this is something that we will have to see, practice, and based on that we will have come to know on this, because till now I haven't seen any performance issues because of this. But I think we will have to cross check this once. Sankalp has asked, are the recommendation personalized by the user navigating the site? If yes, how are user behavior differentiated from other? So yes, the recommendations are personalized by the user navigating the site, and how the behavior is different. Like let's consider again Netflix that is there, or like Amazon that is there. So the recommendations that are shown on Netflix and Amazon are obviously specific to the customer who is watching it based on his previous uh, movies that they have watched. And how this is differentiated, that's something that Sensei is taking care of it right now, so even I'm not aware about it. recommendation will be based on customer IP or customer ID? No, I guess no. Right now, they are not based on customer IP or customer ID. If possibly, it can be using cookies because it's tracking the data that way. But let's for this particular logic part, like that's something that is right now not in our control. So I even the team that I work with in Magento is handling the Magento module. So even I'm not sure they are aware about the AI part or not, but I will surely get back to them on these questions, and we can discuss more about this possibly in the next meet that Atish is planning in next month, I guess, Atish.
Not next month exactly. I think next to next month.
Okay, so whenever we are having that meetup, like I will be sharing those details in an article in LinkedIn. But like if we have questions, we will surely take up in them in the next meetup that we have. And you can always get back to me on my LinkedIn in the messages and all, and we will surely discuss on them further. Because right now the logic that is happening in AI is something that is I haven't seen or haven't like we don't have that access to that environment. We are basically working on how we can enhance the front end and the Magento part. So as I told you, the module gradually developed from having to do the code of UI part manually to having an admin interface which will be is handling the recommendations. So gradually we are improving on the module, and I'm thankful to you all for these questions, because right now what happening was a limited set of people only were aware about this module, and only we were doing the calculations, or we were suggesting the data suggestions that come to us from customers or what we see. But now, since you all have given us so valuable like you have raised out so valuable questions, so this will help us to enhance that module in a better way. And I'm thankful for these questions to you all. So let's now go with the Magento part. And as we have basically installed the module, I'm not taking a demo of the installation because we never know how the environment will work with installation. So we will be seeing how we can create the SaaS key, how we can configure the SaaS key, and how the recommendation units can be changed in the admin and front end. So this is your Magento account, and this is the API portal section from where you can generate the SaaS key that will be used in integration. I'm glad the login worked because I had changed the password a couple of minutes back only. So this is the integration where we can generate the API key. And one of the thing that I would like to share is like the SaaS module is available for community also, but it will not do anything because the recommendation module is available for enterprise only. So why this was the case, even I am not sure. Possibly earlier when they were trying to collect the data, they made it available for everyone. So that's why I can see the API key section in an environment that is not enterprise. Right now, my account is not enterprise, it's just a developer account. But still, I do have the access to the API section. So the name of the key is basically your project name. So let's take it as Meet Demo. And then you need to add it, and it will generate a key for you. So you can generate key both for your staging environment and for your production environment. Then once the environment, like once you have installed the module and all, you need to visit the configurations. Services and Magento services. So this is where you need to configure the environment that is there, the keys that is there. So um, As you can see, this is not a password field, but since that is an enterprise key which I cannot share, so I have made it a password field. So let we can add the staging key here. And okay, I have made this field also as a password protected. So let's skip it. So basically, since it was an enterprise key which is specific to Perficient, I have hidden it right now. So you need to add the keys. Currently, we have only the production API key because we are doing the testing with Magento and in an environment that needs constant data. So we have only the production API key that we have generated from the same panel that we have just seen. And then based on that, it will start showing you the projects. If no project is created, you can create a new project, and the project is something that is only one. The environment is something that can be multiple. So as you can see, I have almost 5 environments right now here. And this is basically your, like, we do have stage environments, we have a demo environment, we have a production environment. So environment is basically something like that. And project is only one, like for one particular project, we are having different environments. So this, if when you initially add this recommendation module, you will get a create this project option instead of rename this project option. So once you have added the keys, can someone tell me in which menu this should come? Like for what we are doing the recommendations. So I will wait for a minute if someone can answer this. Okay, so we have some answers. That is marketing. Yes, this is available in marketing option. And Nitin has given an important detail that we had worked on a similar integration by the name Nosto in Magento Headless PWA to show product recommendation, but it is not an open source. So he has shared the link also, and you all can visit that link and get more details about it. Sachin, you can drop your question and I will get back to you once we have done the demo. So, like Anup and Atish has mentioned that this module should be available in the marketing section, and yes, it's available in the marketing section. So, marketing, product recommendations. So, if you have multiple stores, you can set up different recommendations for all the stores, and like it's store specific. So, these are the 2 recommendations that I've added earlier um, for this demo, and you can see like it also shows how many people had visited this recommendation sections by the impressions, how many clicks were done there in the past 2 days since this module was created. And like you can see, has the whole reporting section also, which you can use for seeing how changes were made after you added the recommendation modules. So this is the create recommendations. And as you can see, the recommendations are available for homepage, catalog, product detail, cart, confirmation page, and page builder. Page builder is something that is added most recently. Like you can generate and show the recommendations on any CMS page also if you want. This is the latest module that is available from Magento. So basically, let's start with home page. As you can see, as I change the page type, the select recommendation type will also change. For product detail page, we have multiple recommendations, but for the home page, we have only 5. So based on the pages, the recommendation types will also change. So let's create one recommendation. So right now, if I go for the trending recommendations, I will not see any data because I have added this module 2 days back and it will have not collected so much of behavior. So I can go with most viewed. Then you have the control over the number of products on how many products you want to show. So let's go with 3 at the bottom of the page or at the top of the page. So I do have one at the bottom, so I will add this at the top. And you can also exclude some categories like for which the recommendation should not show up in the front end. So let's activate this. So that unit has not came up right now. Yeah, here we have. It's load dynamically. So when we first visited the site, it was not there, but once the page was loaded, it was there because it does dynamic calls and brings the units back to you. So here we have the recommendations. We had selected 5 products, but it has only 4 which were there for it to show. So it has shown only the 4 products. And this was the unit that I had added earlier. And then we do have one unit that is added up in the PDP page also. So like as you can see right now, we do have the related products also here, the cross sells and upsells also here, and you have the recommendations also here. So you can see the differences that the data is bringing up. Like this is something that is a cardio ball that is used for gymming equipments, I guess, because it has sending us the recommendation that are used for gymming perspective. So this was the related product which actually Magento had set for the sample data. This is the sample data. So you can see this was the related products that Magento had set. But we can see the recommendation is returning a totally different product that was there. And this is something that is related to a gymming equipment, but it will not click to us that we should show this product also as a related product there. So you can see the differences in the data that is received to us. Similarly, like we can take up some other products also and see. So for this, it doesn't has to do a lot of calculations. Let's go with this. So here you can see it has returned a totally different set of recommendations that were not a part of what we can think for the related data and products you might like. So this is basically the admin panel, and this is how the front end looks. And this is one of the problems, like once we are adding the recommendations, there is no option to remove the related products or the upsells, cross sells right now. We can do it programmatically because obviously we are not going to show a set of 3 different recommendations and confuse the customer. So that's something that we need to manually remove right now. So let's see if we have more questions. How we can enable sales price. So that is something that is a limitation of recommendations which we'll be seeing right now, that it doesn't support customer specific customer group prices. I have enabled it on a website but not able to see sale price and slider which customer required. I'm not sure why you're not able to see the prices. Possibly a case can be that the prices that are coming up on your site are coming up from a third party API or something like that. So because of that, it is not showing up. But that we need to see, like I need to understand what's behavior on your site, and then only I can tell you why it is not showing up. So Milind has also shared one more module that is useful for recommendations. So we can have a look at that also. Herschel Shah has asked, like, can we change the design and add sliders for a theme? So that is something that you need to do, customize at your end, because right now it will show the recommendation based on the default theme that is there on your site, and like accordingly it will choose the colors and all. But if you need to change it totally, and show it in a different way, then there is some, like the module is available in the vendor folder, so you can go and override the files and change the look. Because when the initially we didn't had that admin panel, we were doing it the same way, like we were customizing it for our theme. But right now you don't need to customize it for your theme, because it will show the colors based on your theme. Like I haven't done anything specific for these color patterns and all, it is taking it up from my site only automatically. So right now we don't have to go and do it for the theme. But if we want something that is totally different, then we will have to do the override and make the changes. So like Sachin, as I told you, for why the sales price is not showing up on your site, this is something that I need to see your site, so you can share the URL with me later, and possibly we can debug why it's not showing up. Or we can also, like, we just need to give the instance ID to Magento, and they will debug and share the details of what data they are not receiving. Because as I told you, when I added this module on my local environment, I was not able to see the recommendations. So I just went out to the Slack channel and gave them the instant ID that was there, and it they do check up what data they are not receiving, and they will tell you, like, this is the data that we are not receiving, so you need to check it out, like why it's not getting sent. So if the prices are coming from an API and it's not saved in the default Magento tables, possibly that is a cause of why these prices are not showing up to you. So you can just give them the instance ID and they will tell you what, why it's not showing up. So now we have seen how we can install and configure the recommendations, and we have also seen how we can add the recommendations. So as I was telling you, and like there was a question, when the first time I come to the site, how and what recommendations it will show. So as you can see, the following recommendation types will fall back to most viewed if there is not enough input data collected. So only recommended for you, viewed this, viewed that, viewed this, bought this, bought that, and trending will show most views, most viewed products. If you don't have any data, or if the data that is there, like in the first day that we said that when we are adding the recommendation module, so the first day obviously it will not have the perfect data or the perfect recommendation. So these particular 5 units will fall back to most viewed to show data to customers in the front end. And then we had already seen how we can add that recommendation units to our site, and this is how it looks, and it is totally responsive. So if you go and check it out on your mobile, it will show similarly how the related products are showing. It will not show how it's specific a theme or differently. It will just integrate in your site and be a part of your site and show it accordingly as it's showing the related products right now. So that demo site, the front end, you can obviously go and check out on your mobile and see how the units are showing. You will not see a difference between how um, the related products show and how the recommendation shows. They show up totally similar. Then types of recommendation is something that you can just read and understand. Most viewed are the most viewed products. Most purchased are the products that are purchased in the mostly in the last 7 days. And similarly, they are self-explanatory, so we will not be elaborating on them. Then the most important questions, like since the start we are saying that recommendations are something that is customer specific, but how it will work with cache. So I'm sure right now you had all seen, like when I had visited the site first, it was not showing up the top um, recommendation unit. It showed up afterwards. So basically, it's loaded dynamically and it makes use of private cache and knockout.js templating to serve the recommendation units. So this answers your question also, like is it collecting the customer ID or it's collecting the customer IP? No, it's making use of the private caching. And as you know, all Magento does save some private caching on your browser. So it's making use of all those things to show the recommendation units. Then what are the limitations of these units? So I have already told you, like right now we don't have headless support on it, which is in plan and should be integrated earlier to 2021. Let's hope this corona is gone away soon and we have everything working right as we have. So then customer group specific pricing is not there. Bundle and group products are not shown as a recommended unit. Category permissions, if you remember, Magento has it has added category permissions in Magento 2, where if you choose a specific customer group for which add to cart button should not show up. So this is something that is category permission works with. I'm not sure if every one of you have tried it or not, but it's a very useful feature which we had used in our project also to hide the add to cart button from non-logged in customers. So basically what we had done was, the number of customer groups that were created, we had chosen those number of customer groups and excluded the non-logged in customer, and then it returns out of stock button to text to you in the front end when you're visiting the customer site as non-logged in. So out of stock was something that was not relevant, so we just changed that text to login to view the prices. So this is something that you can achieve from this category permissions without a third party module if you want to hide the add to cart for guest customers. So this is something that is not supported right now, and headless is something that is not supported. Then to update and uninstall recommendations module, like if you are updating it, you just need to update composer, update Magento recommendations with dependencies, so that SAS and catalog export module is also updated. But if you are changing the version, like as I told you earlier, we were on recommendation module 1, and then the module 2 came in, and possibly now we will be having 3.0 version also. So if it's a major version change, then we need to go into the composer file at the document root and change the recommendation module version to the relevant module that is there. For uninstalling the recommendation module, if you are uninstalling only the product recommendation module, it will not get uninstalled. So basically you need to and one more thing, the product recommendation module will not come as product recommendations. It has divided into two units, that is the admin and the product recommendation layouts. So these are two separate modules, and you need to install each one of them, uninstall each one of them when you are uninstalling. Then where and what should I study more about recommendations? So I've shared some important links to you. One of the links is from the Adobe Summit that was there, and the Magento team with which I work with, like Misha, he has given this presentation. So you will get a lot of details in his presentation. A lot of the details were too technical to be covered up here. So we have basically taken up the basics of this module, but you can surely go out to these links and study the different aspects of the recommendation modules. And what to study is, like as I told you, the page builder is something that was added recently, so you can study about that. You can see how we can fetch recommendations from a different source. This is something that was added recently and I haven't tried it myself, so this is something that we can take a study. And then, as I told you, which recommendations to be used for testing. So this particular last link will tell you which recommendation units you need to use on your test environment. So see, the following recommendation types required behavioral data. In a test environment, we cannot have behavioral data. So instead of that, we can use other events that are there and set up these units in the test environment. So you can read about them more on this link. Okay. So Nidhi has mentioned that it is showing completely different products as compared to PDP product. Not sure what type of calculation here to display products. Can you comment on it? And Char Charvi has mentioned that can you share the links here? Sure. But I will be uploading this PPT on LinkedIn also, so you will get it there also. So Nidhi, now I will be taking up your question. See, when we were on this product, this is something that is used in gym for um, for carrying the water and something like that. So you can see the recommendation that it has suggested is a yoga brick, a cardio ball, a watch, an analog watch, and a bag. So this is something that is relevant to your gym articles. Like if suppose you're searching by the product search term gym equipments or things to use in gym. So the these are something that are relevant to this product. But since this this environment is totally new, I had set it up yesterday only for the demo, so it doesn't has a lot of data in it. But still, as you can see, these are not totally different products. These are something that are related to that product only. And once it start collecting the data, and this is not a live site, so it doesn't has all the calculations there. So once it starts understanding the behavioral data of customers and the different type of customers, because right now this site, I guess no one is using outside, it's a proficient demo site, so only we are using it. So when this recommendation units was added 2 days back, so right now it doesn't has that much of behavioral data that is needed for it to work properly. So obviously it will fall back and show the related products that it can find based on the catalog data it has used and based on the keywords that you are adding on your product data. And once the site starts getting older, obviously the recommendations will start getting better. Like right now, even if you visit Amazon in an incognito mode or Netflix in an incognito mode, and you try to browse out things, the recommendations that they will also show will be not specific or the best version it can be, because it doesn't has that much of data. So similarly, this is the case that once it start getting the data, it will start enhancing the look and feel and the recommendation units that it should start sharing. So possibly just what you can do is try this out, visit this site and try out different combinations of products and visit it after a week and see if you can see different products or not, or you can see the enhanced version or not. I hope this answers your question. And obviously the next slide was about questions only, so if someone else has any other question, we can take it up also.
think
You're most welcome, and I hope that answered your question.
I think Deepika has answered most of the questions right between her presentations only. So I don't think there should be any advanced questions coming up soon.
Oh,
Just to give everybody a reminder, I will be posting a link for our feedback form, which is also would be the one where which will determine the participation as well. So I have posted the link onto the chat. Please feel free to fill up the feedback form, and from the feedback form we'll actually do a random lottery to figure out who gets the one single license that we have for giveaway from JetBeans, and hopefully anybody of us would be the winner. Now, coming back to our slides. So just let me give you one more thing that I like to announce. So hopefully everybody can see my screen again. So basically, we have an announcement. It's pet projects that we have been working on. Me, Milind, have been working on. So it's basically a Magento U directory of all the certification, but visualized using different data matrix. So this is just a screenshot of the site, but Milind will actually give you a very nice presentation on like what the site is all about. The site is still in beta, so basically there are much more dynamic things that we are planning to incorporate. We just wanted to present our implementation so far. So Milind, if you can share your screen and give us
Hi
a
Nitish,
presentation.
hi Atish, and hi everyone. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, so can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. One more thing, let's just start the website. Okay, so the URL is very simple, mcd.adaptive.com. MCD means Magento Certification Dashboard. Okay, we just put a shortcut so that everybody can remember. The project's name is MageCert. Okay, and what we are trying to do, we are trying to get some analytics how and why we should get certified. Okay, a lot of people are saying get certified for something, some better opportunity, or some better like get more info like knowledge and everything. But here we are trying to actually show some analysis on the basis of data we have, that public data we have. Okay, so first thing is that we have all the numbers we from last month. The current month data is still not updated, so it's data from last month. Okay, so the total developers are 5274. Okay, and here are some nice style you can see. Okay, and something surprising is that there are 106 full stack developers. So full stack developers means they got 3 certifications. Okay, professional front end as well as the JavaScript developer. Okay, so how this Magento certification actually started? I think around 2017, when the Mage Solution Specialist, Magento 2 Solution Specialist released. That time, a lot of people took the certification, and here's the timeline graph. Okay, here it has a number of certification at that time and have a year and date. Okay, so when it started, a lot of people took. Then it fall down, and you can see that now associate developer, when it was launched, a lot of people took it that year. Okay, 134 in a month, and slowly like this. So this all data you can find it here. Okay, so you can also compare how many full stack developers versus how many associate versus professional. Everything is here. Okay, so it's a nice chart here. Also, you can see a donut chart in which total number of certification can be actually seen. So professionals are 21, like associate are 26, this kind of data. This data is just for like look and feel. Not much we can take it from here, but the next graph is agency wise. Okay, So let me just reduce my screen size. Okay, a lot of improvements need to be done in this small dashboard, but you can see we have a top 50 list of agencies. Okay, and if you want to like see how big the company is, if a client want to search it, okay, how many certified developers are there, we have a very good statistic. Okay, so we are only showing top 50, but I'm planning to do some scroll or overflow anything so that all the agencies can be listed. Also, we are planning to show a rank. Okay, but you can see the rank by the graph itself. Okay, so the top agency is, I think, Blue Econ. Okay, so it have a maximum number of certified developers. Besides that, we have few more top agencies, okay, which are not very far, like Vayamo, and we have Bond Group here, okay, and we have Gorilla Group here, okay. The top agencies are there, and few things we can also see that there is an agency called Forex. It have a lot of certified professional plus developer, that is 32, okay. So you can see if someone is planning to switch a job also, he can see how big the agency is, how big the company is, okay. And we have a Percipient also here. A lot of professional developers are there. So this data is from last month. I think around 500 to 600 developers are added to this data. Okay, so this will be updated by today. Okay, so these are the two graphs we added, and few more. We added some insight like 27% are there, and this through 2% are only full stack and this. Okay, and beside the M2 data, we have the M1 data as well. Okay. So M1 data, there are like, this is the overall data, M1 and M2. So 12,000, around 13,000 developers are certified. Okay. So Magento just, I think, removed the M1 data from agency listing. Okay. But we have that data because we already took that earlier last month. And if we see M1, then there is also an agency-wise chart, M1 certified agencies as well as M2. So this contains all the certification M1 and as well as M2. Okay. So this is the current development. Okay. We three people did it. Okay. One person did dashboard, which is in React, and we are using the Carbon design. Okay, and the backend API is on Node.js. Okay, Nitish did all the data and planning and everything. Okay, it's hosted on Netlify. Okay, and we are planning to add more graphs to it, charts to it. For example, we are planning to add that region-wise, which region, like for example, India have more developers than Europe, and like that. And we have one more chart in plan, that is switch ratio after certification. How many developers actually switch the job after getting certified? Okay, so we will actually post that graph, uh, add that chart in this dashboard as well. Okay, so these ideas are currently are, and if anybody want anything to be added in this, we can add that also. If anybody want to contribute to this project, okay, so you are most welcome, and you can contact Atish, or you can contact me. Okay, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Milind. So this was a very brief introduction to the site that we are currently building. It's still in beta, and we have a lot of metrics that we are going to add. Currently, the repository is private, but we are in plans to make it public so that anybody can like come in and contribute their ideas. I know the UI is still very primitive, but we are trying to work on that. So thank you all for participating in this meetup, and I hope everybody enjoyed their time here, and I hope nobody was bored, right? So please feel free to fill up the feedback form. This would be really helpful for us to identify any things that needs to be improved, and of course, like the PHP Storm license giveaway would also be possible. So I just wanted to wait till the end of the meetup so that all of you who actually lasted till the end actually get the chance to participate in the giveaway. So thank you all, and hope to see you in the next meetup. I think Milind is organizing a meetup Lucknow very soon. I think next month, and I'll try to keep you all updated about the updates happening there as well. Thank you all for coming, and have a nice weekend.
Thank you, Atesh.